This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Goal Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Goal Boys. Coming up on the show, Kiev O'Neil will join us. We will go over a little bit of everything. NFL, takeaways from Sunday, college football, because we have a huge slate coming up, and college basketball begins on Monday. 70 college basketball games. My goodness. NBA and college basketball, for some reason, just came out of nowhere. So we'll get his thoughts, see if he likes anything on Monday, big picture, futures, on all that stuff. But it is an NFL show, at least here to start. And my goodness, we turned the page to basketball. Definitely missed the baseball this weekend. And, like I talked about on the Friday show, when you have a team that you watch every day, that you root for, especially when they're in the playoffs and making a deep run, once it ends, man, it is there is a withdrawal of not having that team to watch every game. And again, going back to the way it ended, it was just very painful knowing Friday night, man, game 6 should be starting right now, and the way the Yankees gave it away. That was just that was a tough reality to sit there and just to just know, man, what could have been, think what could have been. But we turned the page to basketball, football, and football is where we start here. And just some thoughts on the game Sunday. And a lot of the games Sunday, it's interesting. A lot of the games that were close, at least in the early window, were the bad games. The games you didn't really care what happened. Patriots-Titans was good. That went to overtime. I was surprised New England didn't go for 2 once they scored a touchdown late, down 7, touchdown. You figure, hey, go for 2 at the end of regulation, try and win it. You're a bad team anyway. Might as well go for it. That didn't happen. They kicked the extra point. They lost in overtime. Saints-Panthers was good. Young actually looked pretty good now. It's a low bar because you're comparing him to how bad he's been in the past. You're comparing him to himself, but I thought Young was at least decent. They scored 23 points, which, in the old days, in the past for Bryce Young, 23 points. That's it's a month worth of scoring. So Young looked improved. Buffalo, Miami got good. Bass made a long kick at the end. That was a back and forth game. So some good games. But a lot of them were just blowouts. I mean, you just go through some of these, Ravens, Broncos. That was an impressive, just a destruction of a pretty good defense by the Ravens. Ravens just went up and down the field. And I don't think they'll give Lamar the MVP again because he's won it twice. He hasn't really backed it up in the playoffs, but Lamar's playing incredible. And the Ravens are just a machine. Chargers, Browns was a bore. Chargers look like they are on their way to making the playoffs. Raiders, Bengals blow them out. Commanders, Giants was decent. Giants, 27-22. I know they missed a couple 2-pointers. That was kind of a misleading final score. The Commanders got up 21-7. The Giants were just kind of at arm's length the whole way. Falcons 27-21. That's another one where they beat the Cowboys. That's another one that wasn't that close. Falcons in control. Dallas gets a touchdown, a 2 to at least they covered the teasers if you teased them, but they didn't cover the spread. And McCarthy is not going to be there for long. Maybe they don't see any purpose in firing him in season, but I'd be shocked if he's back to start next season. So those were the early games. To me, the story of the day and the story really of Sunday, I think the Lions are the best team, not just in the NFC and the NFL. I mean, the Lions are really good. They win 24-14 against the Packers. They had a 24-3 lead. They just, kind of ran the ball, ran the clock in the second half, didn't need to score. They got a pick 6 right before the half. They get the ball to start the second half, touchdown. And man, they already won in Minnesota. They already won in Green Bay. Their one loss is a completely fluky loss. Now they could have lost in Minnesota, but their one loss is a completely fluky loss at home to Tampa, where, some turnovers, some weird things happen. This team could easily be undefeated. And they just have a little bit of everything. Goff's good. I mean, I know there's concerns about him playing outdoors, but hey, if you get the bye, if you're Detroit, you're not going to really have to play outdoors, and they are well on their way here. I know the schedule is tough, but they already won in Green Bay. They already won in Minnesota, and they just have a little everything. They've got a good offensive line. They've got really good skill guys. They're pretty good on defense. They got a good enough quarterback. I mean, it's just a really, really good team. Should have been in the Super Bowl last year, so maybe they got, that heartbreak out of the way, and they can build on that. And, the bright lights of being there for the first time is something they got out of the way. To me, Detroit is very impressive. And the other story today, I think Arizona winning 29-9. They don't have awards up right now. I talked about this last week. I can't remember if it was on this show or on VSiN, but Gannon at 22-1 for coach of the year. I'm sure that number will come down a little bit, maybe 14, 15-1. Maybe you still get like 17, 18-1. We'll see. But to me, the Cardinals, they're 5-4 now. They still have to play the Panthers, the Patriots, the Seahawks twice. They're favored next week against the Jets. If this team got to like 10, 11 wins and won a division, and San Fran's all beat up, and they already beat San Francisco, Gannon's going to have a great shot. Now, I know Quinn, maybe Harbaugh, but to me, Gannon is very, very live to win this award. So Cardinals are a takeaway here where they're improving. It's a strange team. Their last 3 wins coming into this game where they beat the Bears by 20 today. on Sunday. But before that, their last 3 wins came by a combined 4 points. So they're eking these games out. But if you look at who they beat, their schedule the first 2 months has been all good teams. It's been Lions, it's been Packers, Bills, 49ers, Chargers, Commanders, Miami with Tua when they were healthy. So to me, Arizona is a bit of an underrated team here going forward. Something to keep an eye on. I do like Gannon coach of the year. Eagles, Jags got close late. This was 22-0, and Jags had a chance with the ball late to either win it or take the lead. Barkley had a chance to get a first down, but he decided to just give himself up to keep the clock running, which was very strange. Philly went for 2 a million times. Looked like the Jags were going to lose this game, 40-0. And, next thing you know, they're in the mix. They got a defensive score, and they had a chance with the ball late to win it. Would have been a horrible loss for Philly. But look, Philly's got a good team. When you can line up Barkley, A.J. Brown, Smith, and Goddard. Now, Brown did get hurt today, and that's something to keep an eye on because they are not the same team without him. But when they have their guys, they're healthy. But that is a huge injury if that is a long-term concern. Rams, Seahawks late. This game was wild as Seattle threw a pick six. They were first and goal. They threw a pick six, or they had the ball inside the 10. They threw a pick six. And then they get the ball again, driving inside the 10, throw another interception, and they still get the ball back. Force overtime. Look like they're going to score in overtime. They're driving down the field. They ran 2 awful plays. 3rd and 1, they ran it up the middle. Then they called timeout to run some weird, run play that never had a chance on 4th and 1. Instead of just sneaking it, they ran east to west instead of north to south. Play never had a chance. And then once they didn't get it, you figure they were doomed, and they were. A great catch by Robinson to end the game, a one-handed catch as the Rams win 26-20. Those games are always close. Those games are always one possession down in the final minute, the final play with the Rams Seahawks. Those NFC West games are always tricky like that. So decent day of football. We got Chiefs Bucks Monday night. I'd lean towards taking the points. Chiefs just never seem to have an appetite to blow these teams out, but the Bucks, combating that is the fact that the Bucks are just they're down Evans, they're down Godwin, they're missing their 2 best receivers. So does Tampa have enough firepower to hang in this game? There is supposed to be some weather. It's supposed to rain a little bit. So maybe you look at an under. Nothing I'm dying to bet though. In terms of these games. So pretty good NFL. I mean, a lot of the games were blowouts, to be honest. The late window was late. I will give them credit for this. They have balanced the early and late NFL games much better, where it used to be they front load it. All the games are at 1 o'clock. Then at 4 o'clock Eastern, you get like 2 games or 3 games, usually 3 games. And like one of them's boring, one of them's a blowout, and then you get like one marquee game, and it's just not the same. They've done a better job. They've done a much better job of balancing the schedule. I mean, you got 4 pretty watchable games this week in the later window. Bears, Cards, Jags, Eagles, Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. Hey, you're getting 4 games. That's much better. I mean, the difference between 3 and 4 in that late window is huge. Plus, when there's all the games in the early window, you don't have enough eyeballs. There's not enough TVs. It's just hard to keep an eye on everything when it's so unbalanced and everything is so front loaded. So NFL's done a good job balancing the schedule more between the early and the late games, and you look ahead to next week. And it helps not having a London game too, because then you get more, in the afternoon. Although I do enjoy watching the London games, and we will get a London game coming up because we have the Giants and the Panthers next Sunday in I don't know if that's London or Germany or where it is, but my goodness, you can't pick a worse matchup to have in primetime. I don't think you can have a worse matchup than Giants Panthers. So we have that to look forward to, but we will have plenty of time to spend on the NFL this week. College football, we have a great slate coming up. A lot of moving and shaking as we come down the stretch here. The final month it is. People always make fun of me because I say this a lot, but it's hard to believe you're week 10, week 11 now into college football. My goodness, the season does just fly by. So NFL, college football, college basketball, a lot to do. We will discuss all of that and more with Kiev O'Neil. That is next. This Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. You can catch him at the Odds Breakers. He has become a famous guest after he gave out Indiana 500-1 to make the playoffs on this podcast, 1,000-1 to win the title. My guests have been on a roll, but man, there is not a better call than that. Not that it's cash yet, not that we're jinxing it, but just the idea that would even pop into your head and come out of your mouth, and the fact that it's gone this far. It is the great Kiev O'Neil. Kev, what's up, man? Exciting day of football, college basketball tomorrow. Exciting time of year.
Well, geez, Will, I'm blushing here. I don't feel I'm, what you just portrayed, but I really appreciate it, and I really enjoy coming back on this show. So thank you very much for having me. As you know, I'm a big fan. But man, another crazy weekend of football. But we're busy, man, because look at all the sports now. You got college basketball starting up. You got the NHL already hitting the ground running, and the NBA. Man, I saw some of your props. You're buried in the NBA that all throughout the week, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've just started to dip my toe in the NBA a little bit. College, keeping an eye on that, and it's just, man, these sports collide. It seems like college basketball starts sooner than ever. It's not that. It's just with the changeover in the transfer portal and the changing of conferences. There's just so much difference that there's so much more prep that you need to be like, I can remember when I was a kid, I would know all these starting fives for all like the major teams because most of the kids stayed unless you went to the NBA. Now it's just they're one and done or they're transferring. So we'll get to college basketball in a minute. We'll get to college football. I do want to start with NFL though. Did you have like biggest takeaway from today? Anything you're thinking here for NFL?
Gosh, I got plenty of takes. It's good. I'm in the black now. I hit my final teaser leg with Seattle at plus 8, so that was nice. I really had to kind of dig themselves out of it. There's some good this week. The Baltimore Ravens really put their foot pedal to the metal and didn't choke up this time. So you can definitely upgrade the power ratings on the Ravens, but you still can't trust this team. It's still very hard to lay points, in the NFL, even though some of them covered. Cincinnati covered, but guess what? New Orleans didn't. As a matter of fact, if you had New Orleans as your survivor play, they lost outright. I stayed away from that game because it was just a spot where Carolina. I knew they're going to come in fighting a little bit, even though they are massively outgaining yards. Another take I have, and I hate to say this, but I was saying that the Lions are the best in the NFC, but I think they might be the best team in the
I
NFL.
agree.
At least statistically. Now, if they're against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, would I line the Lions -1, -2? Probably not. If I was an odds maker, I'd probably still put it at pick 'em and just let the market decide. But at the same time, I think that they do edge out the Chiefs in many situations. If you remember last year, they beat the Chiefs too
Sure.
in game one. They just can't give it up like they have in the past. But man, beating the Packers in the rain when they're supposed to be an indoor stadium type team, this was their first outdoor stadium situation, I think, this year. And wow, did they come through in the downpour? How about something you and I called last June, and we both said it. It was on both of our shows. We asked what team's underrated. We said the Cardinals, and
Yeah.
man, have they proven right? Now I wish I would have bet on them more this year, but I have to think that this team is still going to be maybe underrated going into the next and upcoming weeks. Now, I still don't think you might see the top of the market on there. And we just saw a 103-yard pick six in that St. Louis Rams Seattle game. Man, Gino had a bad red zone day. So that was some of my takes from at least the late games.
Yeah, and I talked about it this week. I think on VSiN. I don't know if I mentioned on this podcast, but Gannon to me, for Coach of the Year, was one that's live at 22-1. I haven't checked the updated numbers because 4 wins already. This is win number 5. Favored next week. Slight favorite against the Jets. At least they were on the look ahead. They play the Panthers. They play the Patriots. They get 2 against Seattle. They've already banked a win against the 49ers. If they could ever get to 10 wins and win a division, I know Quinn's the favorite, but let's just say Arizona wins the division, Washington doesn't. You're going to make it. It's going to be a very strong case for Gannon to be Coach of the Year.
That's a great call. I think Gannon's right up there. You're still playing against Harbaugh, though. It's still Harbaugh. I mean, do they have to beat the Chiefs and win the division? No, we did see a couple years ago, Dayball didn't win the division, got Coach of the Year just because how poor that team was the year before. Maybe it's the same situation, but I made a few bets in the beginning of the year for Coach of the Year. If I'm getting 22-1, there's value there. It's not like, you're giving up a whole lot if you got a bunch of 10-1s and 12-1s. It's not like you bet like somebody at 2 or 3-1 and Coach of the Year. So no, that's probably the hottest one right now. And if you can find it at that price, I'd definitely endorse a bet like that.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting, Harbaugh, because they're probably going to make the playoffs, and it's hard to get to 7 AFC playoff teams when you look at, you get Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers probably get a spot, Texans, Bills. That's what, 5. You give the Chargers a spot that's 6. Like, who's the 7th team? Is it Cincy? Is it Denver? Could the Jets somehow claw their way back? I don't know, but it'd be interesting how they view Harbaugh because we all kind of knew, all right, this team has talent. Herbert's good. We all know they have talent. So, like, is Harbaugh going to be? Usually, this award goes to it's the Daboll model. Like, man, this team has no talent, and he somehow got into the playoffs. I'll be interested in how they view Harbaugh because everyone kind of expected Harbaugh to give him a bump. I wonder if that plays into it.
Yeah, that's true. People did expect that. And it's funny, do you go by like preseason expectations, like he's coming in running? Because this is a 5 game, they won 5 games last year, is what I'm trying to
Sure.
say. That is not many games at all. So
No.
I almost think that they have to look at that situation as well. But I think there's a couple candidates, and Gannon's definitely in it. So I would have some on Harbaugh. I would have some on Gannon. Maybe let the rest ride. But I'll tell you this, Kyler Murray, he is playing with poise, and
Yeah.
whatever they're doing down there, it is looking really good. I think that they won against the Niners. The Niners lost their field goal kicker, but that was in San Fran. I'm really curious to see this game in Arizona. I think Gann is definitely live, so I agree with that. Um, there's some really bad coaching moves today
Oh,
too. How about Gerard Mayo not going for two
I was
when he
surprised.
when he ties it? I mean, that is like a basic thing because not only are you the dog, you are away. You don't have the better offense. It's the deck is stacked against you completely, and you don't go for two. I
Athletic
thought that.
quarterback. He had 95 yards rushing. You have a young team. Just do the whole. It's almost like, hey, if it's a free roll, because if you go for it and you get it, oh man, I believe in you guys. I'm gonna, always roll the dice, win that we can build on moving forward. Then if you don't get it, you know what? We lost. We went for it. We showed some balls and went for it, and we're trying to tank anyway. And we don't care about the worst pick. So to me, it's just such a conservative move to kick it. I thought that I was very surprised he kicked.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not just conservative. It was wrong.
Yeah,
Momentum is with you at that point. You do not give that back to the other team. It's do or die. You take the win. You are away. It's what if you miss the extra point too? It's not like those are
sure. Great
guaranteed.
point.
Grab the win in that situation. I think you're going to hear a lot of that on sports talk radio tomorrow.
Uh, I want to get to college football and college basketball just like a minute. Anything on the Monday night game? Chiefs, Ravens, Chiefs, Bucks. Chiefs obviously laying a big number here, 8.5, 9 or so.
I keep looking at the weather because I like props when it comes to these big night games. Cade Otton is getting up there. I think he's at 50.5 receiving yards. I'd still take that. If his number's at 4.5 receptions, I kind of like that as well. You have to realize that they still have nobody to throw to, and the only one that Baker Mayfield trusts is really Cade Otton after Evans and Goddard. Evans and Goddard's not playing this game, but definitely it could be a wet atmosphere, so that worries me a little bit. Whenever there's a wet atmosphere, you want to look at the running backs. Unfortunately, you don't have a lot of information on Bucky Irving yet. He's banged up with a toe injury. He's supposed to play, but you're looking 84% chance of rain. That is not really that's not friendly to receivers. Maybe a Kareem Hunt situation, but I do like Vita Vea there to clog it up, but Tampa Bay does not have the linebackers they did, and they have some injuries. So I'm also looking at some rushing props, possibly maybe quarterbacks props to the under. Maybe even Baker Mayfield throws a pick.
College football, a lot of good games. Bama, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss. I was looking FanDuel and DraftKings. They had some discrepancies where you could have laid 3.5 one book or taken 3.5 one book, laid 2.5 the other book. I didn't jump on it just because you're probably just paying the juice, but make sure you get the best of the number. But Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Bama, anything interest you in those games or anything else? Now Colorado, Texas Tech is a big game. That was another line discrepancy between the two books. Any of those jump out to you? Have you made any bets yet for college football this week?
Oh, I took Ole Miss immediately this morning at plus three
Ooh,
and a half. I saw it. I saw it at DraftKings at plus 3.5. FanDuel was sitting at minus 2.5 juice to the. FanDuel was correct. DraftKings wasn't. Ole Miss is statistically as good or better than Georgia. Plus, Ole Miss is at home. They're at home. I still like it at 3, 2.5. I get a little worried because you got a coaching advantage with Kirby Smart for sure. But yeah, if you still find a 3, I like that. Here's a really good play. I like Boston College laying -1. I took that one already too. The Boston College is coming off the bye, and they're playing Syracuse. Syracuse coming off with a situation where they won at the last minute, kind of against Virginia Tech, kind of one of those let down situations. That game went all the way to the end.
right.
It was. It's just a situation where I have to fade Syracuse. But when you're getting Boston College, which a team I have better than in the power rankings off the bye week, it's a no-brainer at close to pick them. So I took that at -1. It's kind of creeping up to -2. I like it under 3, but I think this gets to 3 pretty quick. So if you guys like it, I'd grab it.
Anything interest you? right now, futures, conference, make the playoff, Heisman, take it whatever direction you want to go. And by the way, Colorado is, I mentioned Colorado. Colorado is live to be in that title game now with Iowa State losing. They're down to plus 350 to make the Big 12 title game. So they got a shot. SMU now with a chance to go to the title game. So a lot of interesting developments Saturday. And anything interests you right now?
Uh, what's Clemson to make the playoffs? Because I still think they could get to the championship game, and I think they could beat Miami if they did.
Would
Um,
you have SMU losing in that scenario?
yeah, that's the hope because SMU has to lose now that Clemson has that loss.
And they have BC at home next week off of SMU's off of a bye. They're at Virginia, then they're home versus Cal. So SMU's in
Yeah.
decent shape here.
Yeah, SMU's in great shape, but they're not an elite team. They're a very good team. It's looking like they would probably play Miami
Yeah.
just based upon that schedule. Pitt looks like they're out of it. I wonder if Clemson, do you think Clemson could sneak in the playoffs with 2 losses? Probably not, but it's a situation to think about at least. I didn't jump at any college futures. I'm holding on to my Indiana ticket, man. That is one thing that I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to play a little bit later. I did split it up in a couple pieces, which is always good to do because that way you can cash out on one of them and or just hedge one of them. So Indiana is definitely live there, but I think my time to make a move on that is not against Michigan because I actually like them against Michigan. I think it's when they go to Ohio State that's when they're in a lot of trouble.
All my playoff stuff is down. I'm looking offshore. They have it down on it. Sometimes you can bet it at FanDuel here. Sometimes they don't. It's weird. It's one of those things in Connecticut where anything you can vote on, any sort of like Heisman, anything with like human voting, they don't let you bet, which is just strange when it comes to college. But they are 50-1 to win the title. So if you think they can get in, I don't know if that's the way to play it, but I don't know. Interesting thought there with Clemson.
Clemson's a terrible number at DraftKings to make the playoffs. They're 2-1. And why
Okay.
is SMU one to? If SMU loses the ACC championship game, they're
You're not
two
getting in.
losses. Why are they? I wish I can get some no prices here, man.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny how they don't post those. What is SMU to make the playoff?
What plus 100?
Oh
It's a
my
real.
goodness. And they're not going to be what's that line going to be against Miami? They're not I mean they're going to be an underdog.
I know. So they think just making the ACC championships game is going to be good
No
enough. I
chance.
completely say no. That is
No
a sucker
chance.
line right there. Yeah, yeah, and that's why they don't have the nose. Whenever there's no nose out there, you have to think a little bit. Am I getting
Sure.
okay odds? The holds on these things are massive. These are there's a lot of sucker bets even with the big books. But that's why we have shows like Shoulda Bet More to try to help some people out.
Yeah, that's actually an egregious number, the even money. Unless I'm missing something, man. You're gonna have to win I mean, they're plus 250 to win the ACC. It's just take them to win the ACC because you're not getting in, an at large here. It's just they're not going to put them in. They already have one loss. That would be a second loss. It's not going to happen.
Bama's minus 150. That's another are you sure? I'm not sure about Bama yet. They still have a couple tough games coming up. Yeah,
But if they lose this week, they're dead.
I know they got LSU, dude. I'd rather bet them on the money line than bet he beat LSU,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. College basketball starts on Monday. We have games noon Eastern. We got a million games on Monday. It's an exciting. I can't wait for these games to start. Anything you like Monday and just in general, who's underrated, who's overrated? Thoughts here, college hoops.
So nothing I like yet for Monday, but I just did a massive Big Ten preview, and the podcast was released on Saturday. And people listen to this on a Monday. There's another podcast I just did is coaching changes with pace changes. So I looked at every new coach coming in and what their history was at their old teams. All 68 teams I did this for over the last week. And I talked about some of the main ones. Like, for example, James Madison, Mark Byington is leaving for Preston Spradlin. And we're talking about a team that was playing super fast to a guy coming in from Morehead State that played like 350th in pace. This is going to be some of the biggest pace changes when it comes to college basketball. The Duke's going from super fast to very slow. So I'm looking at attack totals more than sides when all this unknown variance hits us from just all the transfers and the new people coming in and the people coming out. Like you mentioned earlier, Will, we used to be able to name a starting five,
Right.
at least three of the starters from the year before, but now that's just become so hard. Why try to predict that when you can easily predict pace?
What any futures you played? Anybody you think is undervalued in the futures market?
Yeah, Probably, Rutgers is interesting to me because I mean the Big Ten's a mess right now, and I did a preview, and you can listen to that. The two teams I kind of like to maybe win the Big Ten regular season right now is Rutgers with the two top. They have two of the top three recruits. That's basically the only reason. They did lose a lot of guys, but they're also real injured last year. And I kind of like Indiana. I feel like Indiana is a little bit underrated in the Big Ten. As a matter of fact, I moved Indiana to my top team if you listen to the show on Saturday. I really believe, getting Balo from Arizona and some of those other studs in the transfer portal, plus they return a decent amount of production. I think they're live right now. And of course, Purdue's the favorite. But after losing Zach 80, a guy like Zach 80, I think that might be the most impactful loss in all of college basketball, Will. So I cannot look the direction of Purdue. I'm trying to find some value others in other areas. Cincinnati, you might get around 7 or 8 to 1. Or I'm sorry, Indiana, you're going to get 7 or 8 to 1 to win the college basketball regular season. But Rutgers, you can get at 12 or 13 to 1 to win the Big Ten regular season.
So that's not tournament, that's just regular season, which make
Yeah, they
sure.
don't have the tournament stuff out
Yeah.
yet. It's regular season, and you know, it, I kind of like that because there's just so much craziness that's going to happen and a lot of injuries that's going to happen
Right.
before the tournament. So at least you can kind of just see what you're getting there. You don't take anything less than 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 unless it's the old days with Gonzaga,
Sure.
right? With the WCC, but they're moving on too. So a lot of changes in college basketball, and we're keeping up with it at the odds breakers.
UConn have any chance of a three-peat?
Absolutely, man. They have a great coach over there. UConn is always going to be in the top for me, and it's going to be a team that I'm going to be very careful with. I think it's almost an auto bet if they do take a loss sometime in the regular season. That very next game, you're going to want to be on them, no matter almost what the line is. And that's just how well they're coached. And UConn is recruiting some very good guys like normal. I don't expect them to take much of a step back, Will.
And last one, I know you don't have any necessarily bets on sides or totals for Monday, but just game like as a fan, you're most excited to watch here on Monday. I know we got Gonzaga, Baylor, we got some other games. Is there one game where you're really anxious to see these teams play?
You just mentioned it. Gonzaga Baylor is really cool because this was a championship game a couple years back, and that was one I actually was on Baylor for preseason. I had a really good March
Smoked
Madness
them.
that year, and yeah, that's fun. Baylor's actually a top rated team coming into this year. I think Ken Pom has Baylor number 11. The Zags, they're a little bit lower on. If you remember, Gonzaga last year wasn't quite as good as they were before, but still number 9. So we're used to seeing Gonzaga in the top 5, but we got 11 versus a 9 here. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. You might see a lot of points in this game. So you mentioned it. This is the game. There's only two big games. I think the other one's Texas, Ohio State on
Yes.
Monday. So I was looking at that one too. I find it really interesting that it's a small favorite for Ohio State. I was kind of thinking maybe Texas should be favored, but Ohio State
I think
did
I
do.
have Texas minus 2.5.
Oh, is it okay? Then I think it flipped because when I
Okay.
first looked at it last week, I thought I saw Ohio State. Could be wrong. Wasn't something I was ready to dive in on a side yet because I'm going to attack the totals market first. But I'd still lean Texas at the 2.5.
Kev, great time of year. Appreciate the time. Man, noon Eastern. Are you going to be watching this game tomorrow? I think it's Charleston or something at noon Eastern. Are you going to be watching it or no?
I will not be watching that game, but
Come on.
I got plenty of other priorities to go with through. But man, I will definitely watch the night games, and we'll be watching college basketball every night. It's always going to be a TV dedicated to it. I mean, if you get sick of watching maybe Liberty playing Jacksonville State, you can definitely watch some college basketball. So
That's
you
the
know,
thing too. With college basketball back, and now we're gonna have like the college football playoff. We'll still have the bowl games. It is gonna be just, man, jam-packed sports these next couple of months. It's crazy.
oh, I can't wait for it, Will. We have a heck of a ride coming up, man. So buckle up and get ready.
Appreciate the time, man. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Check us out, theoddsbreakers.com. We'll have our change of pace article up early Monday afternoon. You can listen to the podcast that's out right now.
Yeah, sounds like I have some homework to do because I have some catching up to do, and there's no better way to do it. Check out than checking out your podcast. Appreciate the time, man. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Thanks again, Will.
All right, that will do it. Rate, review, subscribe. A lot of sports to watch this week and going forward. We will see you back on Wednesday. Talk to you then.